Earth is, I don't know. It was kind of weird. I didn't get on like normal, but here
Were
I
you,
am.
were you panicked? Did you have a little panic moment?
No, no, Mahoney. I don't panic anymore, buddy.
I can't
I
get.
haven't Mahoney, I haven't panicked since I was in Ireland several years ago.
Yeah, when your luggage was lost, you lost all your panties on the way home.
Oh shit. I didn't give a shit about my luggage. I just wanted to get myself home, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. We've been at it quite hard, a lot of kilometers under the belt. It was an intensive trip as well, Nick. I mean, the ceremonies that we were doing and all of the sacred work, people don't realize how much it drains out of you when you are tuned in and that frequency is kicking off like that. I mean, it really is draining. People
Yes,
don't,
it is, my friend.
yeah,
Yes, it is. And and it's just strange because we know so much more now than we did then, you
yeah,
know? Um,
very true.
Crazy.
I've been dealing with a very interesting situation this weekend, and absolutely the audience is free to chirp in here. So I did an initiation ceremony with the Akashic Records. One of the women in the group, I've actually known her for a long time, probably 10 years just from mutual friends. It was nice to see her. And she went off and started practicing, but basically she rang me in a total panic a couple of days ago and saying her entire terrace and house is filled up with dark shadows. So I said, "Well, what the hell have you been doing?" She says, I don't know. I was practicing something and something's gone wrong. And then I was overtired. Now I can't sleep. And then these energy viper, vampires are just coming straight at her. She sounded like so shattered. So I've been helping with that. My favorite one is a mixture of a couple of different prayers. There's one called the Armor of God, but I kind of do that when I'm there on scene. But there was another one about I command you to leave in Jesus' name, etc. There's a lot of sort of biblical verses. I'm a follower of the teachings of Jesus, and his blood runs through my blood, and I command you to leave. So I recorded a couple of powerful voice prayers for her and sent her that over the net because she's in a different town to where I am now. And it seems to have worked, but on Monday, I'm going to go around and kick the ass out of that entire bunch of whoever's on that. Salt isn't working, Julianne. She's got salt everywhere. I went through it. We went through
Yeah.
sage, Palo Santo. It really just needs that. Because this is the thing, Nick, I've found that a lot of the time when you get these sort of friendly drum circle type women, I'm not trying to be negative. They'll do certain things and then it'll backfire on them and say, listen, when you start knocking the masculine male energy, it's the only thing that can help you. When you need somebody that's going to go around there who is aggressive, who is willing to tear these things apart in another different dimension and remove them from the house, but where they're not wanted. So, as much as these
You
drum
know,
circle females love all that shit, it doesn't work when you leave a freaking portal open and the things are flooding from a different dimension onto your terrace.
look, I gotta, say, I mean, I've talked about this over the years, but not very frequently. Those are, and it's no offense to anybody, but those things are not for me. I've learned years ago, and as time passes, I know more and more for a fact that anytime somebody accesses external power to do things, okay,
Yeah.
you open yourself up. It is an invitation to all external sources of power, dark and light, to come through you, to come into your presence, to be part of your life. Okay. Even if it's not your intention. And most people, they engage in this, especially back in the day, they engaged in this type of healing without fully and intricately understanding how the astral and the ether realms even function. And I have to insist that none of us, okay, down here fully understand how those realms work. We do not. Many of us know more than others, but it is my experience that whenever we are trying to access any type of external sources of power, it is usually the dark sources that will visit you first. And you may think for years that your power and abilities are coming from a source of light, because they seem to be. But that is how the dark groups work. They lull you into a sense of confidence. They give you abilities. They allow you to heal. They allow you to have knowledge. And eventually, over time, they start taking a turn for the dark side. Now, I know everybody out there who's involved in it is going to be saying, ah, man, what the hell does Nick know about this shit? Well, I know a few things. So that's my little piece on that subject, because it's not necessarily any of my business, but I advise everyone, if they ask me personally, to stay out of that particular realm.
Mm-hmm. You're right. If you're untrained, you're wandering in blind. We're talking about things like Ouija boards, seances, anything where you're lighting candles in front of the mirror. There's
Anything,
a lot of the kids stuff that
anything.
the children's things they do when they're kids, they don't realize the energy vortexes that they're opening up and welcoming in these entities that are going to come in, especially in the teenage years when you're going through all that hormonal changes. You're very vulnerable to these things. Um, I was lucky enough to grow up with a lot of it around. There was a lot of spiritual people around me, but I cannot tell you how many people I've met that have started dabbling with this and they've set one foot into crazy town and they never come back. Years later, I go back and see them. They got worse and worse, socially unacceptable, very difficult to talk to. But there's a flip side to that as well, Nick, which I wanted to talk about. It's great that we head off on this. I bumped into another old friend of mine, and he has had a huge awakening. And on a very positive note, this one, very positive. He's a male. He's a little bit older than me. I've known him for about 25 years. I haven't seen him for years. He realized he had some trauma in his childhood. His father was very off with him. His mother was very off with him. They were very like, shut up, just get on with it. No real love. They never sort of said, I love you. Have a great day at school. Just said, get up and get on with it. But he discovered he realized there was something more to all of this during COVID, and then he expanded on it. But now the problem is that's all he's obsessed with. And this is where you start to ostracize yourself from other people because it's all you talk about. You've got to know where the on button is and you've got to know where the off button is. Because the work that we both are involved with, Nick, you cannot talk about it 24/7 a day. You've got to be able to turn it off. If you're going around with, I remember your stories going around when you're trying to tell your family members about COVID, what's happening. They're all like, pushing you out and pushing you away from the family, saying you're crazy, put your tinfoil hat on. But for the people in the audience's sake out there, whatever you know, whatever limits you're at, wherever you are in this level of this spiritual journey about reawakening these ancient soul memories, you've got to understand, you've got to be able to control the on and off switch. Just turn it down or turn it up. And one of the things I like to do is I don't talk about it unless somebody says something that is relevant. Oh, I didn't take the vaccine. Oh, really? Why not? Well, because I knew this. Or, you know what? Recently, I've had a bit of a bad time in life, and I realized I started looking internally. I was like, interesting. Wait for them to before you start to talk about it because you'll burn their brains out. And it's also no point in flogging a dead horse, as they say. A lot of the people, they just don't want to hear about it. They want to talk about sports. They want to talk about their favorite TV show. They want to talk about game shows and live reality. I'm a forgotten movie star, get me off this island sort of thing. So don't waste your time, guys.
Yeah,
Choose your moments and read the room.
you're right. It's funny, Mahoney, because in all these years, right? My family, I mean, they have access to me and a lot of information that is relevant to all people, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I guess, but or not so humble sometimes. But my mom the other day, she on the phone call, she asked me what's going on with the Iran thing. And I'll be damned if I didn't have the most difficult time figuring out what sort of information to give her that would be relevant to her in her very, very, very starting to awaken state. And I was just,
Yeah.
I was, because where we live and the things that we evolve ourselves in, and I had a hell of a time, and I tried and tried, but too much slipped out, and I'm like, okay, how do I make sense about what I know, and give it to her in a bite-sized portion that she can utilize, and not just be, I can't hear that much, and it was tough, honestly, it was hard.
Yeah, we've been through that as well. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about this straight the Iran thing? It's very interesting what's going on. I
Yeah,
know you.
yeah, yeah. I'll add my 2 cents, even though I understand that the geopolitical is simply a bleed through from what's really going on in the cosmic and spiritual sense, as above, so below. But it is relevant to people. So that's why I'm still involved in the geopolitical machinations, even though it doesn't really serve me, it serves others. So I'm totally in with it. You start, buddy. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I think one of the most fascinating things is how much of what's going on is being mentioned in the Bible. If you do know your biblical verses, which I'm not good at. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's in my head being Catholic and raised in Ireland, sort of in there floating around somewhere. But Um, every day I get more and more bits of information, like Netanyahu has now been flown to Germany, where he's actually died. They're going to announce it in a few days. I don't know if you've heard that. He was injured in a rocket launch attack. Every country in the world says, no, get stuffed. We don't want that murdering bastard here. But Germany says, okay, bring him here. We take care of him, no problem. So we're very sorry about the Jews in 1945. This was a big mistake. So bring him here. And we'll be nice to this one, I promise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Apparently, he's succumbed to his injuries. Every single Ayatollah that they keep putting up there. I mean, those guys in the political party in Iran must be terrified, saying, "Please, don't choose me. I don't want to be Ayatollah. Can you not choose a different person? He looks more like Ayatollah. His beard is better." Because they last about 20 minutes before they just get nuked. So, but then you got the Straits of Hormuz, and like every day, Nick, the prices of gasoline. I'm like, what? It takes me 3, 4 days to go through a tank of gas with the kilometers I do. I go back up there, and it's gone from 150, 160, 170. Now it's 180. Diesel's two euros a liter. That's like what? So I'm wondering how many, and it's limited. Limits your intake to 60 liters, which is only half a tank for me. Half a tank, and I was down to 30 kilometers on my tank today. Oh, come on, I'll go and fill up. So you're only allowed 60. So I had to do it twice, of course. It doesn't stop anything. There was nobody behind me blowing the horn. But even if there was, as soon as I get out, they stop blowing the horn. I like to do that in Spain. Someone starts giving me a hard time. I just get out and like, what? I'm about 2 foot taller than you and they're 3 feet wide. What are you going to give me a hard time? I shouldn't be such a verbal bully. But the Straits of Straits of Hormuz, because they're controlling it, it's pushing the fuel prices up. Again, the whole thing is controlled. Do you really think that a few ships is going to affect the entire planet so quickly? It's like, no, man, let's put the prices up. We can because everyone's thinking about the 70s when the fuel lines were there. Everyone's trying to get gasoline and then huge gas guzzling V8s you had back then. So it is going to continue for a while, but the biblical information is we are God's chosen people. We're using America's soldiers and military to do God's work for the Jews. And they say the most ridiculous things. You wonder why, and they wonder why people don't like them. They say the worst, shittiest things against the Gentile, as we're called. The Gentile servants of the Jews. That's it. They do all the work for us, killing and soldiering and spending weapons. So it's going to continue for a while, I think. But what's the end game? The end game, I think, is just to eliminate, I think, all of the dumbs, all of the underground trafficking. I think they're taking out absolutely everybody, creating all this diversion so they can get on the ground and take them all out. That's my figures.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, but it's always multifaceted. It's always multi-layered, and the layer that the people are gonna see is gonna be the very top layer, the layer that filters through all of the other real reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Yes, there is recently active Stargate under a large city. I don't remember the name. It wasn't a name that just rolls off the tip of the tongue, but it is underneath a specific city in Iraq, recently active. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, Iran, as we all know, is sort of the accepted origin of human existence, right? Mesopotamia,
Yep.
that whole thing,
Yep.
and that's neither here nor there. That's not completely accurate. That is one storyline that, I'll get into in a second. Um, but a lot of that stuff's been already taken care of. Um, but the Anunnaki, that was the place where they began their activities, let's say, okay? But that was not the only activities that were taking place on the planet. It wasn't just a group right there, in Mesopotamia area that was active. That's simply not how it was. And there are many, many, many different stories that take place at different times, at different places on the earth. Some of them have history written about them. Others don't. Others did, but they were expunged by the cabal later on, so we wouldn't know about them. Okay, you don't read much about Lemuria and Atlantis, do we? But there's plenty to read about the Roman Empire and things of that nature. So I believe also, I think a big part of this movie that we're being shown, the Iran thing, Iran needs to be utilized to expose Israel. Okay, the two are connected. For instance, I'll give you a for instance here. There's something called the
Okay.
NPT. It's a non-proliferation of nuclear power, nuclear weapons. The NPT treaty originated back in 1970. And in 1995, the NPT, the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Power, was ratified into perpetuity, meaning they ratified this treaty to last forever. Okay. Now,
Right.
by
Yeah.
now, there are 191 countries that agreed to this treaty, basically meaning you're going to be transparent. We're going to try to de-escalate utilization of nuclear power for warheads and weaponry. We're going to sort of tamp it down, right? We're in favor. This is the treaty, okay, that was created and basically run by the United Nations. Guess which there's a few countries in the whole world that refuse to sign. Guess which one refused to sign that we're talking about?
Probably Israel.
Israel.
Yeah.
Israel, who basically runs the UN, who basically monitors this treaty. They chose, and their excuse for choosing not to sign is ambiguity. They refuse to publicly announce whether they do or don't have nuclear weapons.
Capability. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
understand
I'm not
the
surprised
irony of
about
that?
that.
Okay. There's some geopolitical for you right there. And then there's another piece that I believe that's going to be exposed, and I don't know how exactly it's going to work. There are lots of theories out there where the conflict with Iran is going to expose something called the exposed called the IDF Samson contingency. All right, this is a contingency, Mahoney, that Israel has through the IDF, and from what I understand through a lot of research, the Samson contingency is that the Israel has nuclear warheads aimed at all times at all highly advanced countries. I forgot the terminology for these countries, but the ones that are not third world, first world countries. Israel has missiles capable of reaching many, many, many first-rate, first-world civilization countries on the planet. And this is not known, it's not public, but there are people that are aware of it. I believe this contingency in some way needs to be shown light on through this conflict. And I believe that'll be the beginning of the end of the Zionist control of Israel. And that's just a theory through research and through talking to other people. But that's where I'm going with that.
Well, another theory that I've heard is they're trying to take Israel and they're going to put everybody, all of these real heavy, hardcore fundamentalists from Iran and Iraq, and they're going to put them all into a new country and they're going to call that country Irate. Listen, you know what?
I think they will. I think that is exactly what's going to happen.
I am going
Is
to Irate. You know, it's difficult to know what's going on. A lot of this stuff is using your own intuition and things you pick up along the way. But it is panicking a lot of people, Nick, and a lot of people have been getting. This is the email of the week for me, Mahoney. I'm not sure if I'm going through an awakening or if this is just scaring me to the soul. There's news of potential World War III coming. They're going to have a draft. What do I do? Am I really just going through this soul awakening where I'm rejecting all of this? What can you advise me? I'm like, well, I know what I said, but I'd be interested in what you would respond to this sort of question and email, Nick. What would you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out for a split
Cut
second.
out. All
I
right.
missed.
They're saying, am I really going through a spiritual awakening?
Oh,
What sort of signs should I look for? Because at the moment, I'm just confused. Am I just concerned about the entire planet? Or is this something I'm feeling, this fear and lack coming through the planet? What wake up signs should I identify? What signs should I identify as myself waking up?
well, that's a fantastic question, and that's a question that every single human will at least have in their minds at some time in this process. Many of them won't ask the question verbally. Some will just feel it. It is the beginning stages of awakening. Okay, usually fear is the first. Is
Mhm.
the first emotion, let's say, that you're going to feel. Um, Surprise, shock, alarm, and then based on those immediate fear, oh my God. Because what you're doing is you're realizing what some truths are. Okay. In the awakening process, it is the raise of consciousness, which is in the layman's terms, the equivalent of simply being aware of what's going on. All right. Being aware of the world that you live in and how it works. So it's something going to have to go through. It's something going to happen. And the good news is help from so many people that already at that point. It's going to take near loss, maybe in some of us, where it wasn't permission out there, where weren't people like Mahoney and whatnot around to sort of help you and guide you through and sort of calm some of the fears that are maybe unfounded. But it's very normal. And the best recipe for the quickest success is figure out how to get a hold of the fear and get in front of it. Because as long as you're in fear, it will definitely cause problems. That vibratory, that just know this. That's exactly where the bad guys want you. They want you to be in
Yeah.
fear and stay in fear. But you have to quickly understand the fear and move past that. And some people move into anger, which is another non-helpful emotion in this process, although it is uh, a natural move from the fear to the anger. You want to get at somebody. Okay, those are all processes. Just see to it that those pieces don't last very long. A lot of truthers get in a loop of things like that, where all they want to talk about is let me list all of the bad and dark things that have been done to us. And what happens is that loop forces you into a subconscious and a non-willing loop of victimhood. And people can stay in that loop for a lifetime unless they understand what they're doing to themselves. They're basically rewarding the dark side by voluntarily staying in a low vibration. It is a bit complex.
Yeah, I've equated a lot of it to grief, like a death in the family. A sudden loved one dies, because here's what happens. You go through a set pattern as a human, and a lot of this has happened during a wake up. So all of a sudden you find out some information. Let's say your favorite politician or your favorite film star, let's just say Kevin Spacey or Tom Hanks. You realize
Mm.
that Obama is very dark and he's married to a man. So you think, what? So you go into shock. No, I can't believe it. It's like a phone call saying, hey, your best friend just died. You're going, what? No, I can't believe it. So you go into denial. You're in shock. You can't believe it. No, that's bullshit. Can't be true. Can't be true. Can't be true. Because you're already processing how my entire world is going to sort of be affected by this news. And then you say, I'm in shock. What? I can't believe it. Then you get into anger saying, why? Why did he have to die? Why? He was too young. Why was Tom Hanks a kiddie fiddler? Why? And then you go into, okay, so what am I going to do now? Then you go into a little bit of a lull where you're just like a bit spaced out and foggy, like you haven't slept very well, or you're just a little bit stoned. And then you start to process them all and come out the other side of it saying, well, okay, I've been through all these stages of grief, and now what? You feel numb, you feel weak, you feel violated, you feel ripped off somehow or cheated, that this information has now come to light, that everything you've been taught as a kid about history and politics and where we came from is all a lie. And your heroes, such as Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, they never went to the moon. They're just paid actors. You know, your favorite politicians and heroes that thought you were doing something, they always had a hidden agenda, like Roosevelt building the Hoover Dam. Was that Roosevelt who built the Hoover Dam? Was, wasn't it? Can you hear me, Nick?
I don't know, friend.
Yeah, the president built
I
the
don't
Hoover
know if it
Dam
was.
during the Great Depression to generate all this work for
I
people that
think
had
it might have been Herbert Hoover.
Hoover, the Hoover Dam. You're right. Sorry, mate. Roosevelt, we're talking 1940s. He's 20 years earlier, 1920s. So Hoover, they're the names in the clues in the name, isn't it? Stupid Mahoney. Stupid, stupid. So all these people that were heroes to you, you've now realized they weren't. And here you are realizing you've been living in a lie your entire life, the Matrix, and where you're going to go next, and who should you tell about it? It is like grief, because your entire structure is removed from underneath your feet and off you go. But once you've accepted that, the road to the next stage is very interesting, because then you start to ask who you really are. Here's another question I get a lot, Nick, as well. Is
Yeah.
David, do you know have you ever heard of something called a star seed? And I said, yes, I've heard of that. Yes, I've heard of a star seed. What is it?
No, is that? I've never heard of that. What is that?
Somebody told me I'm a star seed. Can you tell me about it? And I was like, yes. So the star seed, it could be many, judging by what you look like, because I can see your picture. I would assume you're tall, fair skinned, high cheekbone, blue eyes. You seem to be something of a Palladian to me. But Nick, I don't remember all of the other different type of star seeds. I know we've got Orion, we've got Sirius, we've got lots of different systems out there. But there seems to be a top five in the star seeds. So
Oh,
let's talk about
Mahoney.
it a little bit.
There are thousands. There are thousands and thousands and thousands. Most people, especially in the new age groups, they just have a few that they mention: Andromedan,
Yeah,
Arcturian, Pleiadian, Syrian. But there are so many. There are hundreds of groups that are in our outside orbit right now. Hundreds and hundreds of groups. Within the Pleiades itself, there are dozens and dozens of groups within the Pleiades. Aldebaran, Taygetans, Antarians. I can't even the Engans, you name it. But here's the key: none of that really matters, because the vastness, okay? I don't know if we talked a little bit about this on a prior show, but I wanted to lead somewhere with this. One of the number one things that the controllers do not want us to know are the vastness of humans that are in, at least, let's just say, this galaxy. All right, let's
yeah,
just stick with this galaxy, because this galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, is so large that there are off-world groups that have been around for, let's just say, 1 million years. They've been starfaring, star travel technology for, let's say, 1 million years. They haven't even explored the whole galaxy. And there are trillions of galaxies in just this universe. Forget about the multiverse. Don't we can't at this level of our processes, we cannot fully understand the vastness of multiverses and extreme number of dimensions. So it's best to sort of stick with what we're capable of. For instance, in this quadrant, okay, let's take the Milky Way and cut it into four. In our quadrant, it is understood by many of the groups of ETs in the Galactic Federation that are more so overseeing us. There are many groups that oversee us, and then there are most of the groups aren't really involved. They're elsewhere. The Federation is made up of over 1,000 different star traveling nations. So forget about all of that. It's massive. Okay. There are believed to be over 400,000 civilizations of other humans in this quadrant of the galaxy. 60,000 plus, these are all estimated numbers, are more advanced than we are. They have warp drive technology, and they're capable of traveling from star system to star system. 60,000 civilizations. These are races of human that are very much like us. This is the secret that the controlling groups do not want us to understand. And I want to step into this piece, Mahoney, because I haven't really talked much about it, and it's very, very important.
Go, off you go. The mic's yours, mate. The mic's yours.
And what that is how this disclosure has been working and may continue to work. This ET disclosure. All right. People talk about distractions, right? All of it is a distraction from what's the most important. It's not voter integrity. Sorry, 107. I apologize. I know that that's what you feel. Now, everybody has a role. Everybody is doing what they're supposed to do in the movie. I'm just being facetious. But the discovery of the map by the human masses to figure out that where we come from, who we really are, what we're really here for, the meaning of the universe, all of those things. Who really is God? How does God work? Okay, in comparison to what we've been told, what we've been forced to believe. All right. And a really big thing that we're moving up to in this great awakening is disclosure, right? And obviously we're aware that the governments have been somewhat involved in saying, okay, all right, you got us. Yes, there are some ETs out there. Okay, and maybe there's some technology we might have back engineered. What the controllers want to do is first and foremost tell you nothing, but they know that's not going to work. They've known that for many, many years. So they get ahead of us. They get ahead of the game. They see the wave coming. They know it's coming. So they're saying, okay, we need a couple of plans when humanity demands knowing about ETs. All right. The first one is we're going to tell them as little as possible. We're going to go in front of Congress. We're going to have fake experts that work for the cabal, and they're going to give nonsensical, vague information. And we hope it's going to work. Maybe it's going to work. And they've been doing that. All right. But there's two other bits that's waiting in the wings. Some of us have heard of them. One of them is the false alien invasion, but it's a two-prong system. Okay. And each prong basically just revitalizes something that they've been spinning on us for generations. Okay. One of them is the false alien invasion of bad, scary looking, non-human invasive aliens. Okay. And that sort of perpetuates the Darwinistic theory. It's almost similar to the origin of the species. I know many of you guys have heard of Zecharia Sitchin. Zecharia Sitchin was a very deep cabal agent that, very much like Charles Darwin, was coerced into telling a story about the Anunnaki. Okay. Now, most of what Zecharia Sitchin wrote about is accurate. Most of it. Just like a lot of this kind of stuff. A lot of the bad guys will tell you a lot of the truth, but not all of it, not the important bits. Okay, Zecharia Sitchin's theory, and what many people in the cosmic and spiritual community believe, and you know, I'm not the authority here. I'm offering another view at this, was that humankind, all right, humans were all created by genetic manipulation of the Anunnaki 450,000 years ago in the area of Mesopotamia. What these Anunnaki did, they came down, they found a bunch of cavemen, okay, Neanderthals, all right, Homo erectus, and they say, gosh, what a somewhat sad and pathetic existence these human types have. Let us modify them and let us create modern man, Homo sapiens. That did happen. But that is absolutely not our origin. And that is absolutely not all of what happened. Okay? More advanced humans have been coming down on this planet for millions of years with different races of other human. We lived there for a while. Some will go back up to the old planet, go up to the starship. Some stayed here. Some went inner Earth. It was a constant cornucopia of activity all over the planet, all over a long, long, long time. But yes, there was a period in time when the Anunnaki did do that. And they did create humans, a version of humans. But imagine that was one version. Imagine there could have been 50 other versions of star seed of human that look very much like we do. So that is one angle that you'll see being pitched out there. Billy Carson is a big proponent of that. You know, that is his belief. Whether or not it's his belief or he's being paid to push that belief, I don't know. But there are many groups out there that are paid by the bad guys to push narratives because they knew we would demand these kind of answers. Then there's the New Age. This is the second movement. Okay, the first movement, alien invasion, the bad guys want to kill us. All right, they're scary, they're ugly. The second one, that was created by the three-letter agencies a long time ago to get ahead of the wave, was the New Age movement, okay, of these beautiful, angelic, godlike Pleiadian groups that are going to come and save us. Okay, it's very similar to the creation theory. And both of them are not accurate. Both of them are plans for the cabal to continue to take our power, either put us in fear because, oh, we need the government to come save us, or for us to give our power away to these supposed godlike aliens, which will end up just being another version of the cabal. Okay, so it's important to sort of understand the machinations of what we're seeing in social media. And you'll see 90% of everything that's talked about are one or the other version of what I just told you. Whereas both, although much of the information can be accurate, both of those versions are incorrect and they should not be followed, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, you know, when I've traveled around, Japan was an interesting one for me a couple of years ago, I suppose 18 months ago. Sorry, I'm moving my chair. You know, I started looking at all the different species because if you go back and think, okay, Anunnaki, they genetically modify the local species, and they then there was another theory that was floating around saying, okay, well, all the different races on Earth, let's say we got the really, really black Africans, if you go to really like um Namibia, for example, is one of them, and you get the Sudan black, they're really, really, they're not just like coffee colored, they're jet black. Some of these African countries. Then you go to Japan, um, where their eyes are one distinctive. Because Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese, I can tell the difference. You know, in my opinion, the Japanese are the best lookers. They've got this particular look about them, and the hair is very much all the same, male and female. They've got this black, um, not thin hair, but just very straight hair. They're about the same height. They have the same sort of look, good skin. And then Chinese vary a lot, and Koreans are just a bit more round faced. I think that's diet, really. Then you get up into Thailand and Asia and the Philippines, and then you start heading back down across the other side into South America, Native American Indians. And then into South America, where you've got the small Inca and Peruvians, for example, tiny little people. Bolivians and Peruvians are
Yes,
small, tiny. So, one of the theories that was floating around is all of these different species, these multiple extraterrestrial entities that were coming here and settling on Earth to say, okay, these particular ones were really black, these particular ones were really Asian looking. And that's why these particular races, because it doesn't make any sense. I know, okay, I
yes,
get the hemoglobin and the suntan and everything in Africa, but it doesn't make any sense why Mongolians all look like that. Is the sun down there? The sun in Japan is pretty much the same sun in Europe. I was there. It doesn't make them like this all the time, so it makes their eyes go this shape. So I quite
that is
like that
correct. They're
theory,
all
Nick.
different. They're well, I mean,
I
it's a
like
lot
that
more than
theory.
a theory. It's a lot more than a theory because most of the information um, comes from these groups of extraterrestrials, very similar to Alex Collier. He's been communicating with the Andromedan group for most of his adult life. Whereas Elena Denon communicates with a couple of different Pleiadian groups most of her life. And there are many people on the earth that have connections and communication with different groups. All right. Now, believe it or not, there are even closer groups to the humans, such as a group that are around the star Taygeta, which is one of the seven sisters in the Pleiadian system, the M45 star system. All right, the Taygetans. They have four planets that revolve around that particular sun. They are very active, and they have been active in all human affairs since 1952, when they became one of the number one races that sort of helps out, monitors, and works with humans. But there are others. I mean, there are things like, for instance, I'll give you a for instance that most people don't know. There are planetary races that were populated from Earth humans, for instance. And, there's going to be people that may disagree out there, and that's fine. But this is a different viewpoint from a group of ETs that have a lot more information than we do. It is Alpha Centauri is our nearest star
Yeah.
group. There's Alpha Centauri A, Alpha Centauri B, and Proxima Centauri. It's a trinary solar star system. Proxima is a dwarf star. There are planets there. Okay, there's a planet there that is called Alfreda. Alfreda, from what I understand, was a planet that was populated from Earth humans that were taken from Earth thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. I do not know how long ago. Let's just say a long time ago, by the ancient Draco. when the Draco entered at a certain point of Earth history, and the Draco used this planet, Alfreda, as a slave planet, as a farm for their human farm. And they would take people from here and bring them there. And they would raise and they would breed for thousands and thousands of years, Mahoney. And this group of humans that lived there 500 years ago, they were liberated. And back in the 1543, something like that, in that range, they were liberated. And those Earth humans, which are now Alfretans, have, in the liberation, have developed star travel. And now they are back here working through the Galactic Federation and working to free us. And things like that people don't understand. There are breakaway societies that have been Earth groups that have been able to learn and be given technology to travel to different star systems, like the safari groups, like the secret space force groups that was originated in the 30s through the Nazi movement that worked directly with the reptilians. This group, over the last 90 years, they have been terrorizing other planets in this part of the solar galaxy. Okay, many planets of pre-industrialized humans. They've been terrorizing and enslaving those groups. It is very complex and very confusing. And I can't even get into the complexity of the overseeing of what's going on Earth because the groups in the Galactic Federation have different opinions on what humans are like. Many of them are aware of the group of breakaway civilization Dark Fleet that have been terrorizing other planets. That's what they think of Earthlings. Okay, that's what they know. That's what they've been told.
What they've been exposed to as well, isn't it? You know, that
and they've been exposed to that. This is such a massively complex situation, and I need to take everything I just said, Mahoney, and make it mean something, make it make sense, because I'm trying to get to a certain point. Okay, what we're going through right now, you guys, what we're going through in regards to the different levels of cabal. Okay, where the government's the very bottom level. They're nobody. They're nothing. You know, the people that we want to be pulled out of power. There are different levels of groups, and above them are the ancient, you know, the bloodlines, the Committee of 300, the people that are above above that, you know, the royal bloodlines. But above that, there are groups of inner Earth hybrids that control those groups, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. The inner Earth groups control those groups. Okay, and from there, the inner Earth hybrid groups are controlled by factions and portions of the Galactic Federation. The Federation is extraordinarily complex. Some pieces of the Galactic Federation are not in favor of our liberation. Some factions believe we still are not there yet, okay? Some factions don't understand the level of manipulation we've been under. They don't understand the fuckery that we've been dealing with. They're too far removed. There are so many levels of compartmentalization within these groups that nobody knows what's going on. Okay, so let me just. I'm gonna kind of just sort of paint a picture in regards to this liberation that we're working very hard on. Okay, imagine you have a big ranch, nice big cattle ranch, right? And you have a family of ranchers, okay, that have controlled this cattle ranch for 100 years, generations, whatever. This group of cattle ranchers. And then above the cattle ranchers, you have the bank that they got a mortgage to buy the ranch and all the cows from. they're an unseen entity. They don't get involved, but they're there.
They're there.
They have an interest in the ranch, right?
Yeah.
But we don't see them. We don't know who they are. We may not even know their names, but they have an interest, very strong interest. What happens one day as the cows begin to evolve? They begin to somehow magically learn that the ranchers don't have their best interest at heart. Okay, the ranchers do everything they can to cull them and control them and do the things necessary to continue this operational cattle farm. But it comes to a point where the cows can no longer be controlled. Okay. And the cows decide they want to do in the ranchers. Okay. They need the ranchers to come and be. That's the only thing. And the ranchers realize this. What do the ranchers do? The ranchers' goal, you know what? We're going to have to get rid of all of the cows. We're going to have to sacrifice the entire ranch so they don't kill us. What then does the bank do? The bank realizes the situation. The controllers, the real controllers, say, which is more important to us, 1,000 head of cattle or 2 or 3 ranchers? The bank takes out the ranchers. Do you understand? That is what's been going on. That is what we see. Okay. The real cabal, the true power of the cabal throws us some bones. Oh, Hollywood is a bunch of pedophiles? No, 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 no. It's only Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein is the problem. Take him out. Oh, you need more. Okay, here's Epstein and a few other people.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of them, everything else is so nice and kosher. That is what's going on, you guys. Think of the cattle ranch. The bank gets rid of the ranchers and then eventually brings in new ones. These are be good ranchers, cows. You can work with these guys.
These
That's
guys are the
what's
best.
going on. So what needs to happen is we need not be complacent with accepting a little bit of disclosure in all of these different areas. A little is not going to get it done. Okay, we demand all of the truth. We must waken all of the way. And all of us must be in favor of this, not just a few.
Yeah, we haven't reached that what's the word? Exceptional. No, I can't say it. We haven't reached that number yet. We're getting very close there because once we reach this point of no return with everybody asking the right questions and demanding the right answers, they won't be able to stop it. Gets back into we talked about Iraq and Mesopotamia earlier. This Stargate number 10 in Iran that they're talking about, and then Operation Looking Glass. You see, the elites know about this. They know that they cannot stop what's coming, no matter what they do, whether they take down the Twin Towers or whether they don't, whether they kill Trump or whether they don't. It's not going to stop what's coming. And this is one of the things I think this scorched and burn technique is what they're doing now because they know that they are on the back foot. They are on the winning, on the losing side, and the winners are coming very close to them. So, as Russia and Germany did during World War II, when they would retreat, they would scorch and burn everything so it was unusable. So I think there's a lot of that going on, scorching and firing places that we can't use again. It doesn't have to be a physical place, it just has to be something that we feel comfortable with that we can't use again, such as the entire family network, what they've been doing there, instead of having mum and dad and grandmother and granddad all in that family unit, what they've been doing is they've been burning that by creating this transgender network where you don't need a father. You don't, if you want to be a boy or a girl, you can change it. You don't need your parents to do that. You can just run off and do it by yourself. They're trying to burn everything that represents something that we find as a solid foundation, such as the couple, the masculine and the feminine. You know, man goes off and he earns the money. The mother stays at home and raises the children, which are exceptionally important. Now we're having the average childbirth of a white Christian family is 1.1. Whereas Muslims are doing 5.5 or even 6.5. They're higher, they're outbreeding it. This is all part of the design. Give them free money so they can have loads of children, but keep you living in fear for terrorism coming into your neighborhood. You both need jobs to pay the bills because everything's so expensive. You don't have time to raise kids. You know, I come from a family of 4. most people in my generation all had four, maybe five children. It was very common. But how many people and families now do you know? If you say how many kids you got, they all say one, maybe two. That's it. Two isn't enough to sustain a population. 2.2 is the minimum you need. Minimum. So they keep us all in that burned. You can't use it anymore. Single mothers, two, three kids, different fathers. We're going to reward you for your behavior. We're going to give you a house, but we're never going to let those kids see the dads because we're going to make it awkward. He's going to have a shitload of money that he has to pay for alimony and child support. But if he doesn't do it, we're going to put him in jail. Anything to keep that family unit from becoming strong again, because it's one of the strongest things you can do. That love that surrounds all of this family unit is so important, but they're trying to destroy it and distort it. Distort the family value. You control the narrative. We keep them living in fear. We keep the cattle in control. We take out the ranches. We put new ranches in. It's all okay. Don't worry about this over here because we're going to do a trick over here with this hand. Take some more vaccines. We're going to put on a few reality shows. We're going to give you a free upgrade on your phone so you can just wander around now looking at your phone all day without looking at the sky, because it's where you really should be looking what's going on. It's all a controlled demolition. As the old life falls apart and the more things that throw at us, we're just going to become overwhelmed. And only the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and the bright ones will see the real writing on the wall, Nick. And this is what I love about what's going on. We're going to leave all those people behind. I don't want them in the same truck as me anyway, to be honest. I've tried as much as I can to tell them about they need to get on the ark. You got to get in the ark. The rains are coming. They don't want to know. They're more interested in staying living in Sodom and Gomorrah and watching reality TV shows about long forgotten celebrities that are living on desert islands that are half naked, trying to survive on snails and cockroaches. So, where we're going to go next, we'll have to wait and see. But I know Nick is going to come back in a couple of weeks and share more of your views and information and downloads, Nick, from the people that you've had from around the world, because we've hit the top of the hour and it's come like that, hasn't it?
It has. I have to apologize. I did a couple of rants, but there were some pieces of information that isn't talked about much, especially in certain circles. And I just wanted to kind of get those things out there for people to sort of mull over. And you got to understand, you guys, above all else, this planet has been a school for learning for souls, and it will remain that for as long as necessary. There will be duality. There will be the choices presented to each of us for good and evil, for lack of a better word, to make it simple, even though, in higher realms, those two things do not exist. Only unity exists. But down here in this dualistic separation existence, these choices must be presented, and you are going to be forced to make a choice, between the good and the evil going forward, or living in this, like Mahoney said, Sodom and Gomorrah sort of AI dystopian matrix that will be available for you if you choose it, if you desire. And the people that choose to do nothing will choose that existence by default. And that's what we're trying desperately to avoid. If you're going to choose evil, man, there's nothing much we can do for you. There's not. But we are trying to reach those who do not think they have to choose, because that's the way humanity has been for a very long time. We could sit on the fence, sit on the couch, not do anything, ignore, put the head in the sand. But those days are kind of coming to an end, and the choices have to be made. So that's how it works.
You're absolutely right. Tick the box yes, or tick the box no. We'll see you on the next show. We see you in the next dimension. A lot of these people I don't expect to see sitting on that bus with me, Nick, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I've reserved the seats for the people I love, and there's people that deserve to be sitting there. Nick, as usual, you delivered a 5-star show tonight, and you mentioned something about ranting. You're never ranting, brother. That's passion. That's knowledge. It's channeling. What I try to explain to people: when you open yourself directly up to the power of spirit, he sends these words. These are not chosen by us. There's no script here. This is just all channel. That's one of my favorite things about talking to you. We never know where we're going to go on these chats. We'll have you back on in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, stay fit, stay strong, keep doing what you do. Keep dancing on the dance floor, Nick. You're doing well. I'll be back on Tuesday. Hang on, Maria's got a question. What's the question? Let's have a look what Maria's got. Where's the Q&A? Where is he, Maria? Did anyone come anything? Did anyone come through the Stargate asking for a friend? They wouldn't disclose that information anyway, Maria. If
Yes,
anyone's
of
coming
course.
through, and a lot of it is energetics. It's not necessarily the Stargate that you know from the film where people are coming through. It's an energy portal where it's a different dimension. It could be something we don't see. We're talking something demonic, or it could be something angelic.
Yes, just so she'll understand in generalistic terms, this has been going on for thousands of years. These portals and stargates, the secret societies, the dark groups. You got to understand they get their power from these astral entities, these demonics, and they come in lots of shapes and sizes, anywhere from extreme demons to departed, Dracos or what have you that come from the astral can be brought back into reality and do harm to good people and help the bad people. So, yes, those things had been being used for those purposes. Um, but anyway, on that note, I always enjoy hanging out with you, Mahoney. You know that. You're my favorite guy, and you have an amazing group of viewers that I love to spend time with. And it's always a pleasure of mine.
Me too, buddy. The expansion continues and everyone's consciousness is awakened by these little tickles of knowledge that we keep spreading, Nick. And although we got lower numbers on the lives now, we're still getting high numbers on the shows as a broadcast and forwarded all around the place. We'll be back soon with Nick Sylvester. Thank you, everybody. Do you want to share anywhere they can get a hold of you, Nick? Are you doing anything else recording? Yeah, I know you're trying to take it easy at the moment.
Well, yeah, I do a show every week on Angel Warrior Network with a couple of nice ladies, and then of course I do Truth Stream maybe once a month. Obviously, I do your show, and I do a show on YouTube called The Cryptid Huntress, and we talk about
That's great.
Bigfoot and Dogman and all kinds of interesting, fun stuff. I'll be on her show next week, so you can look that up. And there's a sprinkle from here to here, but I don't. I try to stay sort of off the beaten path as best I can.
I get you. Nick, we love you very much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Dr. Corey's back with me on Tuesday, guys, for your medical questions. Get them into us beforehand so we can guarantee we get them answered. And Nick, we'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Bye bye. Thanks, Nick. I'll see you soon.